Thanks to Valerian van der Waal and Chris Burton. Valerian's in South Africa, and Chris is in Bulawayo, both hunters. Valerian, not of the professional type, but a very enthusiastic sports hunter, and his dad, PK, did a lot of hunting in the old days in Rhodesia, Angola. In fact, Valerian, hasn't your old man got a record out of Angola for that elephant?
He got the world record. I think he was shot in 1951, of the tallest elephant ever shot. But that record didn't last long. It was about another 2 years later, and I think it was broken within about 20 miles of where he'd shot that elephant. So he did hold the record for about 2 years. I think it stands at number 3 now.
Okay. And Chris used to hunt, also a professional guide, now doing other things. But Chris, you're the guy on the ground. And I just want to say to you guys and whoever listens to this broadcast, the reason I get engaged in an issue like this, Blondie the lion fiasco, is because I know so well, although I'm not involved in the business anymore directly, really, but I just know so well that if you take the hunters out of these areas, those areas are doomed. They are not going to survive. They are going to be resettled, and in a very short space of time, there'll be no wildlife left, and you'll just have a barren landscape. Because as you know, Chris, particularly this area where this lion has just been shot, it's hardly agriculturally viable. It's very marginal land, very marginal soils. It's well suited to wildlife, and it doesn't lend itself very well to photographic tourism. So, as in so many areas, the only really effective land use is through managed hunting, and as we all know, it has the capacity to generate very, very significant revenue, which can be utilized to supplement and compensate the local people who do struggle with wild animals in terms of lions attacking people, cattle, elephant and hippo damage. The only way you can get these people to tolerate this sort of hardship is by compensating them, and the only way you can compensate them is through hunting. And so it's against this backdrop that I'm going to ask you, Chris, to just tell us as much as you know about what did actually happen, because as always happens, the story gets twisted 100 times as it circulates around the world. But it's a very big story, and it looks like it's doing a hell of a lot of damage to the hunting industry in general and Zimbabwe in particular.
Very much so. And it's just going back a little bit, a couple of years, my family actually used to own a farm along the boundary, very close to where Blondie was shot. That was back in the 70s, early 80s. A lot of those areas along the Wangi National Park were used as cattle ranches. And even back then, there were so many lions that the lions would attack the cattle almost on a nightly basis. And most of the guys that farmed in that area had to give it up, had to give those areas up because it just wasn't financially viable. The predators would clean you out, basically eat all your profits. It was run at a loss. And back then, that was when the farmers actually gave it up to people who were conservation minded and took over those areas as hunting areas, as wildlife areas. Some people put photographic camp there. So that's the basis of what's happened in the park. And there's no shortage of lions there. There's no shortage of big maned lions. And it's been like that since the 70s. In fact, it's been like that forever in Wangi. So on this particular hunt, the professional hunter in question, I have spoken to him. There's some of the stuff, obviously statements that they want to put out there, and he's asked me. But generally what happened on the hunt, he had a client that wanted to hunt a lion. They went into that area. They didn't target Blondie at all. Like I say, there's no shortage of lions. They were looking for a mature male lion. They had turned down. I know I've seen a photo of one of the lions that they had turned down. And right near the end of the safari on a bait, that lion came in. One of the big problems you have with these lions with huge manes, when they are collared, it's very difficult to see the collar. The PH has to make a call. That lion was nowhere near the boundary. It had actually gone plus minus 10 kilometers from the national park, heading out towards the populated areas, obviously doing his travels as lions do. They encountered him, made a call, and took the lion. All above board, no shenanigans going on, all the permits by parks, everything was completely legal. And as far as we're aware, as a bunch of hunters here in Zimbabwe, shooting a collared lion is not illegal at all. In fact, a lot of the lion research people have told us it's actually part of the research because it shows them where these lions are moving. And I'm just going to elaborate a little bit. A couple of years ago, when I was on the committee for the association, we tried to fire up a plan. It was actually very soon after the Cecil debacle, where we said, okay, let's make some iconic animals here in Zimbabwe, some elephants, because there's a problem. A lot of the guides in these areas, they obviously love these lions and they want to look after them. So we said, well, let's make some iconic animals. One of the biggest problems we have, like I say, with lions is that when it's a huge maned lion, and there are a lot of them, and you put a collar on him, it settles down into the mane, and it remains very difficult to be seen. So we try to come up with other ideas. Do we dart these lions and brand them so that, when the professional hunter's looking and he can see the brand? And the biggest problem that we have with this is people want to come to Africa and they want to take photos of animals in their natural state and that look natural. We already had complaints about guys, with the elephant collars, and guys want to take photos of these huge tuskers, and there's a huge collar sitting with a GPS on the back. So it is a very difficult thing to try and get certain lions protected and try and get certain elephants protected. But in reality, they're all part of the study group. And as long as all the ethics are upheld within the hunting and the permits are all signed off by national parks, there's nothing illegal about it. There was nothing illegal about that hunt. And again, like Cecil, did anybody know that there was a lion named Blondie except all the people that have taken photographs and the guys that live along their boundary? I didn't. And again, I've been privileged enough to guide in Wangi on photographic safaris as well as hunt out on the boundaries. And I can tell you right now that the lion population has never been stronger in Wangi. It is phenomenal. Wherever you go in Wangi, there are lions.
Point that I think a lot of people are missing. In fact, there's talk that there might be too many lions in Wangi. So the wildebeest are taking a lot of strain, aren't they? Some of the buffalo herds, I believe, are under quite serious pressure. There is a lot of pressure on that park from the lions.
Indeed, there is, and a lot of it also comes because we're so overpopulated with elephants. What's actually happening that I've noticed, my own observations as working in the park, is every year, October, November, when there's no or very little water, and a lot of elephants are dying of starvation. And what's happening is these lions and the hyenas are feeding on free carcasses. So their population is literally exploding. And a lot of the pans that we used to drive around and see herds of eland and sable and giraffe, their numbers have thinned out a hell of a lot because just about every pan or every 2 or 3 pans has a pride of lions that live on it. And of course, they will target the eland and the sable, the easier prey, rather than the buffalo. But the numbers are definitely starting to go down. And most definitely, I would observe that probably too many lions in the park. And this is what's creating these, as these lions are getting older, they're getting pushed. And there's only one place to go, and that's out of the park to the less populated areas. And unfortunately, that then puts them with the human-wildlife conflict because those hunting areas and photographic areas create a buffer between the park and the local population. So the local population benefits hugely from the jobs that are generated from these people that come, to either take photographs or do a lot of hunting. And generally, the hunting areas are places that aren't suited for photographics. It's thick bush. You can't. So the local population love the fact that the hunters are there as a buffer to stop these animals, the elephants, crossing through the hunting area and going out. And there still is every year conflict with elephants. Elephants killing a lot of people. They're protecting their villages and things. And what amazes me is that, all these people that jump up and down and get on what we call the keyboard warriors, I'd like every one of them that's donated $10 to African Wildlife to put their hands up because we would be inundated with millions of dollars if people put their money where their mouth is. We, unfortunately, after Cecil, we had a young guy that was killed by a lion that charged. And in a situation like that lion was known for being aggressive. The guard would have shot it in self-defense, and he didn't, and the lion killed him.
And that was because he was too terrified of being crucified by the media if he shot the thing. So indirectly, it's media pressure that's the reason Quinn Swales is no longer with us.
That's right, and a life needlessly lost. And there's a photographic guide that is doing his best to educate people, and his life is taken because exactly what you say. He was just too scared to pull the trigger in case the media got hold of it. The lion was later put down because it was known as an aggressive lion. And this is the biggest problem that we have now is over this whole Blondie debacle, is somebody else's life going to get lost because they thought twice about pulling the trigger on. And we have these situations all the time where we do run into these aggressive animals. So is another life going to be needlessly lost because of keyboard warriors?
And Chris, I was talking to another mutual friend of ours, just catching up with him the other day. There have been several villages in Chilocho and near Det killed by lions. Um,
Very much so.
there was a schoolboy going to school the other day who was eaten by a lion. You don't get the media jumping around when these things happen. It's just,
Exactly.
and this is what makes me so angry about the world media, the way it's basically a cheap shot, because they know that they've got an audience out there of millions of people who love to hate someone, and it's nice to hate a white professional hunter. It's
Yes.
it's an easy target, and easy to love what's a lovable looking lion with a call Blondie, and so off they
Yes.
go, and it attracts a huge audience, and they're feeding them all the wrong information. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, the losers are the wildlife, and that's what we were talking about earlier. When the hunting industry is destroyed or no longer viable, God alone knows what happens next, but it doesn't look good to me. But Valerian, I just want to bring you in here at this point because you're very familiar with what hunting has done for South Africa in general terms, and the numbers are staggering. I'm a little bit uninformed, but from what I've seen, wildlife has responded incredibly well to hunting in South Africa. But you tell us more about the history of hunting and where South Africa is today.
Okay, thanks, Hannes. I think the game industry in this country has just absolutely boomed the numbers beyond all sort of dreams. My father was born 1923, so it's in the mid 30s. If you wanted 1930 to shoot a kudu or hunt a kudu, there were pockets near Kimberley, there were pockets in the Eastern Cape, parts of Natal, and otherwise you had to go to the Limpopo province up to then Rhodesia to hunt kudu. There were none in this country. There were pockets of them, but the game, there was almost no game here. You go to Namibia. I think the game population in this country in 1960 was about 500,000 head of game. At the turn of the last century, there were 127 elephant left in this country. There are now 25,000 odd elephant.
Is
The
that right?
Bontebok,
Say that
yeah,
again, Valerian. Say that
there were
again.
127 elephant left in the country at the turn of the last century. Okay, there are now 25,000 odd elephant.
Sure.
You look at the numbers of the rhino from being 27 and 5 left or whatever it was up to the 20 odd thousand throughout the country. The Bontebok, there were 27 left here. There are now big populations of them. The game, I think, in 1960 is when the whole thing started turning. The game industry of breeding, that's saying anything between 16 to 20 million head of game. What that constitutes exactly as game, I don't know, but the populations are massive. Just in the Western Cape, you see sable, you see all sorts here. The game farms have boomed. I think in the more marginal areas, probably similar to the Gwai area that you're talking about, like in the Limpopo province, where it's marginal cattle farming, guys have turned to game and they've done very well. And there are 100,000 people employed in the game industry in one way or the other. I mean, the revenue of $2.5 billion coming in here, it's exceptional what the game industry has done. The amount of meat, and I think Department of Agriculture is also must get involved here now because of these marginal areas where cattle farming, all of that is very difficult. South Africa harvested, I think, 58,000 tons of game meat last year, and they want to push it up to 100,000 tons in the coming years. So I think there are areas of about 1 million odd hectares in some of those tribal areas they would like to put into game because it's a profitable way of farming, and you can actually harvest it, sustainably. There was an act in 2019 they brought in where 34 species of game have actually been classified as farm animals. So you can actually breed them in whichever way you want. One can argue how the breeding is, but what it is the game populations are thriving here throughout the country. Wherever you go, there's game everywhere. You see it absolutely everywhere now. And I think how it's changed in the last 40, 50 years here is remarkable.
And the rhino population, I mean, that's also in very good shape in South Africa.
It is. The only problem we have with the rhino that they need to is the belt trade and the rhino horn, which I think is a whole different topic. But the problem with a lot of the rhino are in private hands, and if you can't somehow move the rhino horn of sorts, you have no value in the animal. But they are, protecting the rhino. The poachers have been going wild. They've even shot rhino down in Worcester here, but they seem to be holding out in the private hands, the rhinos. So the population's in good hands compared to what it was 30 years ago.
And Blaine, just closer to home, the leopard down in your neck of the woods are coming on strong, causing a bit of a problem for you farmers.
Yeah. They went and clapped another 17 odd sheep in the mountain about 3 weeks ago. Now the leopards, so all of the game populations here and the bird populations, it's also different to obviously big game down here. We've got small game, but if my father had been dead 25 years ago, so if I said to him, we've got eland that moved through here, we've got bushbuck, we've got bush pigs, he would have sent me to lunatic asylum. So a lot of the game has come back here, and a lot of the bird populations are thriving here. But in the same context of the greenies, you go to areas where there's only farming. Okay, in our area here north of me, they're not a single bush. There are absolutely no birds. So by the fact of my love for bird shooting, I've preserved most of this property there's obviously agriculture going on, but we have immense amount of guinea fowl, francolin, grey-wing populations that don't exist anywhere else. So hunting here has preserved the bird life here and the indigenous felt here. It's a similar but different story to up north, but again, hunting here is what's preserved it here.
It's brilliant. I don't know how we get the message across to the world, how you counter this anti-hunting propaganda.
I think I'm going to cut in there. Again, having worked on the photographic side, a lot of the people that come out are very anti-hunting. And I've been, like I say often, I bring it up, I've been lucky enough to have been on photographic safaris with many of these people and have educated them. I haven't at all hid my love for hunting or tried to play it down. In fact, I try and promote it with people. I've had guys say, if there were hunters here, none of these elephants would be here in front of us. And I've said to them, actually, none of these elephants are even close to trophies, so they would all be here. And that's why they're here. So education is the biggest, is going to be the biggest boost for us to look after this. And I would love it if the professional hunters and the professional guides, photographic guides, would work together on this rather than butt heads as we often do, and educate people on the pros of hunting and what it does for the systems. Valerian was talking about the birds. I'll give you a quick indication of what happened here in just after the war. A lot of guys that went back to cattle farming and things like that in the Marula district, which is near the Matopus, which had at one point the highest population of leopard in the world. A lot of the farmers there treated leopard as vermin because they killed so many cattle. I know one farmer I personally have spoken to, he said that in the early days he had shot over 200 leopards on his property, just driving around, putting out traps and that because they were vermin. The minute leopards became a viable source of income because we had now clients that were keen on hunting leopards, all those farmers stopped shooting them and the population has exploded again. There's beautiful leopards in those areas where the farmers will still have the land. Mm-hmm. And now they look after them because there's a value on the wildlife. We always say if it pays, it stays. And a lot of people are anti that because why should an animal have a value? But it's the same as cattle and it's the same as sheep and everything. If it's got a value and if it's beneficial for the communities, and this is the biggest thing, it's for the communities in those areas. So I say to people that want to be keyboard warriors, before you start slating everybody, educate yourself on the importance of the utilization of wildlife in Africa. It is just so important that we educate. And my wife owns a stationery store that she's actually been pushing a lot for. A lot of the professional hunters come in and they have clients that give her money. And we realize that the only way we're going to change everybody's idea on this is education. So what these guys are doing is they're taking the stationery packs out into the rural areas and educating, giving it so that our future is the education. So we're educating the locals, and I do believe that the guides and hunters, and especially the photographic guides, should be educating the guys that generally, the people that come out on these photographics are probably 90% anti-hunting. But if we can change their way of life, not their way of life, change their mindset on the importance of wildlife. And they take that information home so that when they're sitting having a barbecue in the States and that people are coming up anti-hunting, they can put their hands up and say, actually, I was there and I saw the benefits. And that's the only way we're going to get through is to try and educate. And it's going to be a long, hard road because, unfortunately, everybody, jumps up and down because the first thing that comes up with Blondie, for instance, is he's a pride male. There's another male going to come and kill his cubs. It's nature. It happens. And it doesn't happen all the time. Not every lion will walk in there and a new lion, if he was even the pride lion. They like to, again, the tabloids like to put it out that he was the pride lion and he had 14 cubs. We actually have no idea. Nobody lives with these lions on a 24-hour basis and knows what goes on there. But we just need to educate the rest of the world.
This was
Well, I think the rest of the world needs to see what snaring does. If you could just show these antis what snaring looks like, what animals look like when they're caught in a snare, and say that what happens when there's no hunting, there's no revenue, there's no one to pay the game scouts, none of that. That is the brutality of that is horrific, but no one seemed interested in it. But the advantage of social media is hopefully you can try and send it out there as brutally as possible without being shut down on it. But back to what
sorry. A quick interject there. What you're talking about snaring. So I hunted an area in Mozambique that has both wildlife and local population on it. Yeah. And 9 years ago, I was attacked and gored badly by a buffalo. Spent quite a few months in hospital. That buffalo was wounded by poachers. I was at the time in that area. I was there trying to help the villagers with a man-eating crocodile. We were actually walking around in the reeds looking for a crocodile that had been taking some fishermen. And this is for the client actually saved me. He shot the buffalo off me. And he was so well educated by the time he left there of what happens when the wildlife is not utilized in the correct way. I was the third guy that week to have been injured by wounded buffalo, but that had been wounded by poachers. And these guys are for the meat market. It's not a sustainable thing. They were there looking for meat, and they still use the old muzzle loaders and pieces of rebar. And that was what this buffalo was wounded by. So, it's, when you have a look at not only when it's not managed properly and how many people are injured, and I know that area has like 40 buffalo on quota. So when the buffalo are shot there, all the meat goes into the villages. So it's actually a help. But going back to what you're saying about snaring, if people saw how damaging the meat trade is.
In that area you're talking about, Chris, a lot of gin traps.
Very much so. So again, a lot of gin traps were taken out. I saw, and they cannot find the guys that are making these gin traps. And they're like the old bear traps from the States. The animals have a very, very painful death. The gin trap's tied to a log so that they have to drag the log, and the guys can track it, and then they spear the animals to death. The operators that operate a specific area that I know of, they've taken so many gin traps out of their areas. They've used it to put in the concrete on all their camps, fishing camps and everything to reinforce. So that's how much steel they've pulled out of the bush and how many animals' lives have been saved. It's unbelievable. And that's just, it's a hunting area. Yes, you can go in there and take photographs and they can do photographics in there, but it's the hunters that have saved 99% of the animals in that area.
Well, you mention of Mozambique, and Valeria knows about it. That reminds me, the success story in Maramau with the Haldanes. I don't know how many. I mean, I think there were 4,000 or 5,000 buffalo left there 20, 30 years ago. Under Frelimo. I think at one point I was told they were actually machine gunning them from helicopters, and using the meat. Apparently, the meat was going to factory ships to feed the Russian soldiers in Afghanistan or something.
That's exactly what it was.
But they killed over 100,000 buffalo there, and that was state sponsored. But in come the hunters, and I don't know what's the buffalo population now, Valerian. Do you know?
I speak in a creation about 90,000 in that area now. There were no lions. They introduced lions there about 15 odd years ago, I think, with the help of Dallas Safari Club. There are over 100 lions there now. And obviously the intention one day to shoot some of them. But I mean, the population has been repopulated. The area is thriving, absolutely thriving. From a animal desert on the outside to this absolute utopia of all the animals under the sun in there. It just shows what he's done. Mark Haldane did an incredible job there with the help of a few people, but he's preserved this area or reinvigorated this area with game. It's extraordinary what he's done there. But the other thing, on the other hand, about Blondie lions. So if you have enough poachers poaching an area, you deplete the game. The lions have no graze anymore. They will then go out and hunt cattle and stuff in the TTL areas. It's a snowball effect. You take away natural food, the animal will go and find food. It's as easy as that. It's a vicious bloody circle, and it all starts with the poaching and then just leads out from there. Without hunting, you got no, with poachers, you got no hunting, but the hunters prevent the poaching, and it's a sustainable area, looks after the animals. Bottom line to it.
Yeah, it's the Mtetsi safari areas on the north of Wenge National Park are an exact example of that, where you can drive around and see huge game population. In fact, there's more plains game now in those hunting areas than there is in the actual national park. So you can drive around it's waterbuck and kudu, sable in those areas because the hunters are there looking after the game, pumping water, making sure there's no poachers coming through the area. The quotas on those areas for hunting is very, very sustainable. So you're not depleting the population. In fact, it actually helps it grow. There's a lot of lions in those areas. And that's what people don't understand. I mean, Zimbabwe has no shortage of lions. and no shortage of magnificent lions. Cecil's mane, Blondie's mane, nothing out of the ordinary when you start looking at the rest of the lions in their park. I mean, there's magnificent male lions. And because of the breeding and because of the dead elephants, there's so much food there, there's never going to be a shortage of lions. The lion population is exploding. And they're moving out the park more and more and creating these human-wildlife conflict. And the problem comes is when you have all these villages and they say, but we've allowed you guys to come here and hunt because we're tired of these animals coming out and killing our cattle, killing our goats and sheep. And when the hunter turns around and says, well, I can't shoot that lion because he's got a collar, villagers, they don't care about a collar. They care that 10 animals were killed.
Well, that's, Chris, that's what, just written an article, that's what I would like to bring these do-gooders to the coalface and send them into Chilocho or whatever and say, you go and tell that chief and those elders and those people there that you don't want any more hunting here because you don't like it, and see what sort of a reception you get from them.
Yeah. In fact, it went on. There was a rumor, so I can't say it's 100%, but I believe that some of the people that have photographic camps on the edge of Wangi that were creating a big noise about Cecil and being anti-hunters were actually told to wind their necks in by the chiefs, and we're told, hey, guys, you're making your money here with all these photographic people coming through. That's very nice. But the lions that you love to take your people to show and photograph at night come into our villages and kill our cattle. So there's no benefit. So rather tone it down a bit. Don't be so anti-hunting. It's going to happen. And again, a lot of these guys that are getting these concessions for photographic, they know exactly that they are going and putting up camps in an area where there is sustainable hunting going on around them. So when they give lions and birds and everything a name, they've got to understand that there's a good possibility if he leaves this area, he's going to be shot. And stop making so much noise about it and just understand, okay, Blondie's gone. Believe me, within another week, there's going to be another huge maned lion in there anyway. It's creating an opening for another male to come out of the park. So it's not like he was one of 5 lions in the whole of Wangi National Park. He's one of 500.
Oh, just before we close, I want to ask both of you, Valerian and Chris, because Valerian, you know about Kruger, but this elephant overpopulation, I mean, from what I can see, Wangi is turning into an environmental catastrophe. The habitat destruction is out of control. And as you say, I mean, the plains game is being marginalized by elephant in Wangi, is it not, Chris? I mean, they just...
Very much so.
So much habitat destruction.
Yes, I've been in and out of Wangi all the time doing freelance guiding, and what amazes me is that it's not happening over a number of years anymore. It's happening over a number of months. You can go into an area in July, and it's beautiful, and there's a lot of trees and things, and go there 3 months later, and it's been flattened by herds of elephants that have come through that area that are starving. Look, the water pumping in Wangi is very good. They're pumping millions of liters of water a day. The problem is the snowball effect that it has now. It's created a carrying capacity that's been well overstocked by these elephants. It's having a huge impact. The elephants destroying all the browse for the things like eland. So the numbers of eland are dropping. It's having a huge impact on their park. It's unbelievable how huge areas are being completely destroyed. And there's so many people that say, well, it's a natural nature taking its course. It's not. I've always explained to people, you put 3 rats in a box, they'll live well, but a year later they're going to be eating each other. And again, going back to Blondie the lion and what I said before, there are so many deaths of elephants dying of starvation that the lion population and the hyena population has exploded. And a lot of people don't understand that hyenas are super predators. So by having too many lions and way too many hyenas, again, the population of plains game is being destroyed. And pretty soon there's not going to be too much there.
Well, what's happening in Kruger? They've also got an elephant problem there. Are they going to do some culling or?
I don't know, Hannes. I don't know what the story is in the Kruger Park there. I know there's also an overpopulation, as is with the parks in Zimbabwe. But what the plans, I think it's difficult with the Green sort of brigade to do anything. I think everyone's sort of got their hands tied behind their back. I don't know the answer of the Kruger, but I think what's happening in the Wangi, and they're probably very similar, massive areas are being destroyed that cannot come back. It's the overpopulation everywhere. It is a problem, and it's not being solved. And the problem the greenies saying, well, let nature take its cycle. Some of these trees, they're 500-600 years old. Once they're gone, they're gone. You can't just regenerate that cycle. So I don't know what the solution to the place is. I don't know. So I know that Kruger Park does capture and try and move them, but capturing and moving is not doing anything with what needs to be done,
Well, thanks, Chris.
And the hunting of elephants is not controlling the population at all. I think 2% of an elephant population is looked at as trophy material, and these are obviously big old tuskers that the guys try and shoot. So I think if you shot 40 elephants around the Wangi National Park, it's not going to do anything to the 40,000 of the population that's there now. And I think if memory serves me correctly, when Wangi National Park was first formed, I think there were between 5,000 and 10,000 elephants in the area, and now. And they would migrate through to Botswana, down into southern Botswana, northern Botswana. Now they boxed in and they can't move where they used to move. And the population is exploding. I think every 10 years an elephant population will double. It is catastrophic when you see what they are doing in Wangi. And like Valerian says, it's never going to bounce back from that. These trees have taken so long. The teak forests and things are just being destroyed, and they're never going to bounce back unless we control the elephants. And everyone says, well, can't we move the elephants? Yes, donate money. There's a lot of places we can move elephants to all over Africa. But again, the problem is you're sending them to their deaths. The reason there's no elephants in those areas where you want to send them is because there's no hunting. It's just been poached out. There's nobody there looking after the animals. So all you're doing is sending them to their death if you do move them.
I mean, to back your point there of sending them to their death, I mean, Kenya, I think, banned hunting in the 60s or 70s. And I think their game population is down by 80%. Something, and I think the same with Tanzania was also similar. The elephant population was at 220,000 or something like that. Well, I can't remember what it was, but it's a fraction of what it was.
Yes.
So you're 100% right. It's also that there's also, I think there were studies done on the amount of trees that bull elephants knock down versus cow elephants. And I think the bull elephants do 5-fold more. So, if you could go and, shoot a lot of those young bulls all over the place, you might preserve a little bit more than what the cow herds are. I don't know, but there need to be some solutions coming up to it. But leaving it will be catastrophic in the long run. Absolutely catastrophic. As you're saying, on a monthly basis, things are not yearly. They're changing on a monthly basis. And these forests are from millennia,
Well, guys, thank you very much for your input. I appreciate it. I just hope this message gets out to enough people and people in high places, and people start understanding who the real heroes are, and who can actually do something to stem this tide, because otherwise the future for wildlife in Africa is extremely bleak from my view.
It is. It'll be doomed. And unfortunately, it'll be the leaders of that will be the greenies. They will be responsible for the amount of death that will take over Africa because of everybody and social media looking.
What makes me so angry is they don't give a damn about the effects, because they don't even live in Africa. They don't know a damn thing about the dynamics and the problems and the issues and the possible solutions. But it's just so easy to get on these bandwagons and virtue signal to the world. Look at me, I'm so angry about this lion being killed, and so I must be a wonderful person. And this is how people are. I wrote an article yesterday which I put out there. My problem is I'm getting on in years, and I have given up trying to argue the case with most people about hunting, because it's like pushing water uphill. Emotions get involved, and they're too stupid to even begin to understand how complicated this problem is and what the solutions are. I don't know about you guys, but I've kind of thrown in the towel with trying to speak to these people.
So I've realized in the years of doing this guiding, the photographic side, there are a lot of people that are very interested in listening and learning about it. But like Anna says, and then you get the stupids that have their own idea, and you're not going to change their mind, and you just realize it's like trying to push water uphill. Smile and wave, carry on for the next one. But we've, as a group of people involved in wildlife, we have to keep going at it. We have to keep trying to educate these people and letting them know how they can help Africa, and that's not by bringing toothbrushes here. You're not doing anything for Africa by bringing toothbrushes here. You need to come here and help us educate the people around the world and within Africa of the need for wildlife.
All right, Cos, well, I'll let you get on with your Sundays.
The education actually needs to come from the government.
From there.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, boys.
We will.
Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Chris.
Off to church, Valerio. Try and get some.
I'm heading there to go and pray
and
for
see
your
the
sins,
priest
Hannes.
and see if you can get some help.
He's going to the
Nomine
temple of
Padre
Constantine.
Filius Sanctum.
All right, thanks, guys. Thanks a hell of a lot, Chris. Cheers, boy.
Pleasure, mate.
Cheers, Chris. Cheers, Hannes.
Cheers,
Bye-bye.
man.